All right, let's dive in. Today, we are cracking open the brain of one of the most successful investors on the planet, Ray Dalio. We're going to deconstruct his incredibly powerful and, yeah, let's be honest, kind of intimidating principles to figure out the core algorithms that really drive success. It really all boils down to this one single idea, a pretty provocative quote that holds up his entire philosophy. Treat everything as a machine. Think about that. Your job, your relationships, your health, you as a machine. It sounds a little cold, I know, but it's a seriously powerful way to reframe just about everything. So that's the big question for today, right? What does this machine for success actually look like? What's the blueprint? How does it even work? Well, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you the schematics. Now, here's the good news. You don't have to memorize hundreds and hundreds of rules. We're just going to focus on the 5 core meta principles that really move the needle. You know, the classic 80-20 rule, this is the 20% of his framework that gets you 80% of the results. Okay, first up, systematize your experience. See, most of us, we go through something, learn a little lesson, and then we forget it by next week. Dalio's approach is totally different. It's about capturing every single learning as a concrete principle. It's kind of like writing a piece of code you can use over and over again. So let's say a negotiation goes badly. You don't just feel bad about it. You write a principle like, always be the first to anchor with a high but defensible number. See? You've just turned a one-time failure into a compounding asset. Second, and this one's a game changer, a believability-weighted meritocracy. This is such a brilliant solution to a problem every single group has. On one hand, you have the trap of just listening to the highest paid person in the room. On the other, you have the chaos of treating every opinion like it's equally valid, which it isn't. This system finds the middle path by giving more weight to people who actually have a proven track record. Simple, but so effective. Principle number 3 is radical transparency. And this is so key. This isn't some fluffy, feel-good cultural value. It's a functional requirement. It's the data pipeline for the machine. Think about it. Without honest, open, sometimes brutally honest feedback, your machine is running on bad data. And when you have bad inputs, you get distorted political outputs. You get the truth or you get garbage. Now for my personal favorite. Pain is a signal. Dalio's formula here is so simple but just profound. It's pain plus reflection equals progress. Most of us, our natural instinct is to run away from pain as fast as we can. This system does the opposite. It leans into it. It treats pain as an error message, a flashing red light telling you that something in your machine is broken and needs to be diagnosed. Pain literally becomes the fuel for progress. And that brings us to the 5th and final principle, the one that ties them all together. Treat everything as a machine. As soon as you see a problem, whether it's in your business, your bank account, your life, not as some chaotic, unknowable mess, but as a design flaw in a machine, everything changes. It suddenly becomes a puzzle, something you can understand, diagnose, and ultimately fix. Okay, so those principles sound pretty cool in theory, right? But how do they actually work? Let's go under the hood for a minute and see how an idea like believability weighting gets turned from a concept into a cold, hard mathematical rule. Now, this looks a little complicated, but the logic is actually super straightforward. First, the algorithm figures out a base score for everyone's opinion, looking at their track record and how they explain their logic. Then it does a few adjustments and normalizes all the weights so they add up to 100%. Finally, it calculates the decision and, this is the most important part, it checks to see if there's a big fight brewing. Let's make this real. Imagine you've got 3 people. Person A has a fantastic track record and thinks the answer is 70. Person B's track record is just okay, but their logic is rock solid. And then you have person C, who's really passionate about their idea, but their track record is pretty weak. The algorithm takes all that in, track record, logic, and spits out a final weight for each person's vote. So, the final weighted decision comes out to 64.886. You can see it's pulled towards person A's opinion because of their strong track record. But here's the twist. The number itself, it's not actually the most important thing the machine produces. Because the machine was also doing something else in the background. It was calculating the level of disagreement between the most believable people. And in this case, it threw up a big red flag, high conflict. This is where the system gets really, really smart. So what did it find? It found that the conflict index was nearly 18.5%. Now that's a big deal, because let's say the preset threshold for an automatic flag is 15%. Because it crossed that line, the machine doesn't just go, okay, here's the answer. It does something much more useful. And here is the aha moment. The real genius of this algorithm isn't to just calculate an answer for you. It's to find the most important high-stakes disagreements that need more human brain power. It automates the process of figuring out what you really need to be talking about. It points you directly to the fire. So that's pretty cool for running a hedge fund, but what about the rest of us? How do we take these ideas and port them out of the boardroom and into our actual lives? Well, let's take a look at how this can become a kind of universal operating system. Let's start with codifying your learnings. In business, a bad sales quarter makes you rethink your strategy. Well, in life, that fight you keep having with your partner, that's not just a bad night, it's an error signal. So you diagnose it and you create a principle, like Principle 147, we do not have serious conversations after 10 p.m. Boom, you've just written code to fix a recurring bug in your relationship machine. Or what about weighting by believability? We should all be doing this, seriously. When you need advice on a tough situation, who do you ask? Don't just ask your loudest friend. Give more weight to the friend who has actually been through what you're going through, the one with the proven track record. And this one is so powerful for reframing personal setbacks. You oversleep and feel terrible all day. That's not a moral failing. You're not lazy. It's just an error signal from the machine of your body. The input, your bedtime or maybe what you ate, was wrong. So you adjust the machine. You don't beat yourself up. And finally, seeing your life as a machine. This takes these huge, scary, overwhelming problems and makes them feel solvable. Your finances are a total mess. It's not chaos, it's a machine. It has inputs like your income and your habits, and it has outputs like savings or debt. If you don't like the output, you can systematically go in and redesign the machine. It gives you back control. Look, this is an unbelievably powerful system for making rational decisions. But as we wrap up here, I think it's really important to ask one last critical question. Is there something this whole worldview is missing? Is there a blind spot in the machine? The system, just by its very design, puts logic, data, and cold, hard rationality on a pedestal. And for so many parts of business and life, that is an absolute superpower. But what about the areas that are governed by emotion, by creativity, by art, by spirit? A purely algorithmic approach might just miss something really, really essential about being human. So the final thought we want to leave you with is this question. If these 5 principles help us build the perfect rational machine, what's the missing principle? What's the one that balances that incredibly powerful machine with our humanity? That's a really good one to think about. Thanks for tuning in.